worship you. Yeah, yeah. Ooh, yeah. I am so fearfully and wonderfully made. You are the potter, and I am the clay. Could have been silver, could have been gold, but you chose dust to cover my soul. Now I lift up these hands of clay to give you the glory and worship your name. Oh, my heart rejoicing, for this I know I was created to worship you. So now I lift up, oh, so now I lift up these hands of clay to give you the glory and worship your name. My heart rejoicing, for this I know I was created to worship you. Created to worship.
I'd like to welcome you here today. Thank you for coming out to the house of the Lord. It's good to be here. Amen. We're going to begin in the first book of Corinthians, chapter 13, which most of you should be familiar with. Chapter 13, starting with the 4th verse. It says, charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, does not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. Beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. You may be seated.
You have won the victory.
many times, but I just want to make sure people know it and consciously go over it. But that pretty much everything we do comes from one of two places. It either comes from love or it comes from fear. Now I'll explain the third one, which we're not going to get into detail, but is habit. We just do it out of habit. But when we're making decisions or going through things or what we're trying to accomplish or achieve, it's going to come out of fear, it's going to come out of love, one of the two things. And in this opening scripture that talks about love and the different parts of it, and the part I want to underline where it says, thinketh no evil. And we know the opposite of good is not bad, but the opposite of good is evil. And there's no evil in love. Love is perfect. So there's no evil in love. Love is complete, it's perfect, it's whole. And it doesn't think evil. So when evil thoughts or evil actions or whatever that might be identified as, it's not coming from love. Because this tells us right here in the scripture that love doesn't think evil. Now, the part I want us to be able to separate, just like when we do something either out of love or fear, but to separate, how do we filter our thoughts? Or how do we channel our thoughts? And I believe in one or two ways in our thoughts also, that we're going to either think logically or we think emotionally. And sometimes those two don't agree. Sometimes our logic and our emotions don't agree. Now, emotions are like many things in life. They can be a blessing or they can be a curse. Emotions can be an asset or they can be a liability. And you may say, well, why do I even need to know, or what's the difference? There's a lot of difference. Because when we think out of emotions, we act out of emotions, we lead out of emotions. Emotions can mislead us. They can misguide us. And emotions can lie to us. And I realized this, that even in church, if you want to call serving God, coming to church, worship, praise, prayer, many of those things people do out of emotions. And emotions will be the fuel, and emotions will be the motive. So emotions will be what powers it, but emotions will also be the ultimate goal, which again can be dangerous. Emotions can be a blessing, but they can also make you stumble. Now, I'm not saying emotions aren't involved, because they are. I'm going to say that again. Emotions are involved. You can worship God and get emotional. You can pray and get emotional. You can praise and get emotional. But it doesn't have to be our goal. Right. I'm going to say that again. You can get emotional, but it doesn't have to be our goal. Say, why not? The reason not is because emotions come and emotions go. Faith shouldn't come and go. Hope shouldn't come and go. Love shouldn't come and go. Emotions do. So when you're looking at something or going over something or going through something or going by something, whatever it is, the ability to separate logic and emotions is important. It's like I say over and over, 2 plus 2 is 4. Gravity affects everybody. That's logic. That's not emotions. 2 plus 2 is 4 is not emotions. It's logic. Gravity isn't dictated by our emotions. It's logic. And to understand it. So, I'm always going to attempt to deliver a message that logically applies to your life, logically applies to my life, that there's some logic into it. Now, does that mean we have to have everything figured out? No. Because sometimes we can chase some things that all it's going to do is distract us. And you'll hear people get into those discussions. And even if you figure it out, at the end of the day, what's it going to do for you? Why is a rock dated billions of years old? Okay, you get it figured out. Does that make you a better person? No, it doesn't. But people will chase these things, and many times I get questioned about it, and I'm like, I really haven't spent much time on it. I'm not an expert on those different things. Say, shouldn't you be? Well, I can look into it, but there's a lot of other things that I believe I need to be more knowledgeable about. And those are things that would be important in your life. Yeah. What we call where the rubber meets the road. Yeah. Because when you're going through a difficult time in your life, or you're in a corner, or you're between a rock and a hard place, are you thinking about the date of a rock? No. Are you thinking about what happened to the dinosaurs? That's not what you're holding on to. They say, well, it's about faith, and that can shake my faith. Well, I think our faith needs to be bigger than somebody telling us that there's no God. Or how did this happen? Or when they tell you it would be impossible to put all them animals on the ark. Those are things that you will hear. But many people will say, well, the difference to me is what I felt and what I feel. Now you could feel something, you felt something, but it goes beyond that. Mm-hmm. To me, it's the opposite. I look at creation and say, how can there be a God? I'll say, how can there not be a God?
Amen.
Amen. This is just chance. No. You could just look at a newborn baby and that'll tell you there's a God.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Well, I would think that you would agree with me there. You could just look at the design of the human body and say, there was a God that created that.
Amen. Amen.
With all the technology of computers nowadays, that still doesn't compete with the human brain.
Right.
You think that was accident? Mm-mm. Or accidental? Mm. And they say we only use a small percentage of our brain. I don't even know what the percentage is, but it's like 10, 12%, some small percentage. I don't know if that's a fact or not. I would believe there's truth, though, that we don't use all of our brain. And as the children go back to school, some of them are already back, some of them are heading back. But the whole thing about school is to educate the mind, to teach the mind, to train the mind. And sometimes a child can get identified as something or marked as something, and it may not be true, or what they'll label that child. And like I say, all boys are attention deficit disordered. All boys have a problem keeping their attention. Men, it's different. Men don't have that problem. No, you didn't get that. Boys turn into men, and men still have the same problem of keeping their attention. My belief is they're changing it up, but it used to be only females taught. There were only females that were teachers. And a classroom is designed around the female mind, not around the male mind. And a female has more ability to sit there and stay focused and follow through with the teaching and assignment, where a boy wants to touch something, he wants to grab it, he wants to put his hands on it, he wants to see how it functions, take it apart and put it back together, but still using the brain. Men, or you could say boys too, that may seem like they're not very smart, but yet they can be highly intelligent in certain areas. It's not an accident. The brain is there. The ability is there. It's just some things they won't focus on. They're just not going to learn it. They can learn it. The ability's there, but they're not going to learn it. Because many reasons. The payoff to them is not there. They don't know what the payoff is. Even if they know the payoff, they still may not want to do it. And then men have that thing in them where it can start as a child, where they try to avoid it and avoid it and avoid it and avoid it, and then they grow up to be men, and then they do the same thing. They avoided work when they were 10 years old. They avoided work when they were 20 years old, and then they continue to avoid work. And then they go down a path of what they think is the path of least resistance, and what that path of least resistance turns into is a difficult path. A quick footnote: the easy way is the hard way. The easy way is the hard way. And the hard way is actually the easier way. And what is the hard way? The hard way is putting your work in. The hard way is putting your work in, your due diligence. We can find excuses of getting out of certain things we don't want to do. Things that take effort. Things that take energy, things that take some labor out of us. We can find an excuse to get out of it and to forfeit it. But if we continue to do that, what we end up doing is making our life really hard and difficult. And then decisions are made out of that place. How can I make this easier? How can I take the shortcut? So I'm going to take the shortcut, and that'll be the easier way. One time we were up at camp, and we were near the recreation area, and this at night. It's like 10 o'clock at night, so it's pretty dark. There's some lights that are out there, but it's pretty dark, and there's two of us there. And all of a sudden, there was a skunk. there's skunks around her. And you don't know, a skunk can just for any reason get you. And something could trigger it. So we're both there, and then I said, at the count of three, go, run to the cabin. I told this gentleman. So from the recreation area, there was a sidewalk, and the sidewalk went like that to the cabin. It wasn't a straight line. So at the count of three, we both took off. I went down the sidewalk. I stayed on the concrete. He took the straight line. So he thought that the straight line was going to be the better path. But on the straight line, there was a retaining wall that was like about this high.
Wow.
Which he couldn't see in the dark. So I stayed on the concrete, and even with him going down the straight line, I was still ahead of him.
Wow.
So before you knew it, I was back at the front of the cabin. He went off the retaining wall, twisted his ankle, and he was down. And in front of him was a skunk. And he's screaming for me. And I'm like, there's nothing I can do for you right now. I can't save you right now. I gotta wait for the skunk to leave.
Yep.
And on my birthday, there was another gentleman in our cabin, and he shared that on my Facebook, the story. He goes, I'll never forget that story. And the other gentleman remembers it as my fault. He's like, why did you do that? I didn't tell him to go the straight line. I didn't tell him not to. I just said at 3, go. I didn't think about him running down the dirt part. I didn't think about it. But once we both went, I realized he's going another path. Well, the shorter path became the harder path. He was on crutches the rest of the camp, limited. But that's how life is too. We think that we can find a shortcut. We think we could find an easier way to do it. And that easier way ends up becoming the harder way. I've thought about this, and it's taken me a lot of years to come to the conclusion. And I remember this question in my 20s, my early 20s. What would you rather have? Time and no money, or money and no time? And I know what answer you're going to give me. I want time and money. Yeah, that's what we all want. But through years and trial and error, I realized I'd rather have money and no time. I know some of you won't agree with me, but it's like, what good is time when you gotta hide your car unless it get repossessed? What good is time when you don't know if your power is going to get shut off? What good is time if you don't have money to go get something to eat? You don't like that, huh?
Come on.
So you just do the time. What do I mean? You do the time. You do what you have to do, so that when you do have some time, you also have some money. Does that sound unfair? In some ways, you could say it's unfair, because some people do, Brother Mario, think that's unfair. They do, they think it's unfair. But we can get biblical And the Bible can be, in our minds, a little bit harsh. Does anyone know what it says about eating? Nobody knows the scripture?
You know what?
If you don't work,
You don't eat.
you don't eat. That's what it says. Now I know you don't like that. Well, I didn't write it. I'm just telling you what it says. And this was written thousands of years ago. But it makes a lot of sense even today. Whatever that work might be. But I'm sure none of you've done this, but you've been around people that do it. They go to work and they spend their whole day figuring out how to not work. How to not do their job, or how to pass their job on to you. My thinking has always been, let's get the job done. Let's just get it done. What is going to be the most efficient way to accomplish this job? Let's just get it done. And we can talk and talk, and we can dissect it, and we can go over and over, and we can talk about it's not in our job description, and we can talk about that it's not fair, but it still has to get done. But when we look for the easy route, the shortcut, how do we get out of it? How do I not do it? Then that's what our thoughts are going to be working on. And you know where that goes to? It goes right into our prayers. We see prayer as work, so we've trained ourselves to avoid work. So prayer is work, so I'm going to avoid prayer. Anyone want to get together for prayer tomorrow? See, we avoid prayer because we see it as work. But see, when you can put some logic in there and understand, prayer is beneficial to me. Prayer is a necessity for me.
Amen.
And we can spend the whole rest of this message talking about prayer, but I don't have time for that. But then if it's just a quick metaphor, that when we understand that when we put that effort out, that it's a blessing back in our life. It's a strength into our life. It helps us to stay founded and grounded.
Amen.
But I realize, show me somebody that avoids throwing the trash, it's the same one that's going to avoid praying. Can I get some help doing this? Or it's the same ones that are going to avoid prayer. Because the mindset is already there. They already have a whole list of excuses. They're already. Okay, I'm going to let the worship and praise team in on a little secret. I gave it on Wednesday. But it might change them up a little bit, but I'm going to let them know a little secret. When they are putting in effort and work and doing rehearsals, going over a song, going over the words, how does it go again? What was that? Did we say it this way? Did we say it this way? Okay, pull that up. What does it say? Why do we got to sing it again? Why do we got to go over it again? What is it? See, I look at it and I realize they don't know something. It's a form of prayer. It's a form of making that connection. Because at that time, their mind's not on all these other places doing all these other things. It's just, okay, it's putting in that, should I just call it work? But it's also a time that is going to give them a connection to the Lord. Instead of the way it could be, Used to be you just kind of just went. You just started singing. You just went, whatever. But it also removes that time that, yes, you're trying to perfect the craft, but you're also spending time that's connecting you in a type of prayer. So you might see where you're singing a song over and over, or you're singing it by yourself over and over, or you're singing in your car over and over. It's a form of prayer.
Amen.
And I told this on Wednesday, but you're getting ready to speak and you're studying, it's a form of devotionals. And it's taking you down this path. As compared to be, well, how do I get out of doing the work? How do I get out of the study? How do I get out of putting the effort out? See, you can have all the talent in the world, but you have to be available. And I don't care how talented you are, you still got to put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
There's some crazy talented people, but they'll never do anything with it because they're too lazy. And the laziness will rob them of their gift. I hear people do this and it means nothing to me. Well, I could do better than him, or I could do better than her, whatever it might be. Look at a painting and say, I could paint better than he can. Listen to someone sing. Well, I can sing better than they can. Okay, but it'll never happen. Because if you won't put in the work. You think the greatest athletes in the world were all just DNA gifted?
No. Work.
Some of them worked really hard to get where they're at. And then you get some that are gifted and work hard. You know, one of the hardest workers at his craft was Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
But what people will think, well, he was gifted.
Wow.
He was gifted at some extent. And it helps if you're 6'7" playing basketball. But he wasn't the most talented in his era, even in his era. LeBron James is physically gifted. But guess what? He also puts in the work. Kobe Bryant, physically gifted, but worked extremely hard. Do you see a pattern there?
Mm-hmm.
Magic Johnson. And he's still been the biggest point guard that have that success. They can't duplicate it. But he wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the one that could jump the highest. But he worked hard. And he credits that he says his dad put that in him and taught him how to work hard. His dad was, I believe, a trash man. And worked hard. Another one, they said he'll never make it in the NFL. Too slow. Can't do it. Jerry Rice. Some people will argue that he may be the greatest NFL player ever. Now, he's got records that are just way beyond the guy's second, which would be like Randy Moss, Terrell Owens. These guys would be their second. And he's like, I remember when Steve Largent scored 100 touchdowns, receiving 100 touchdowns. And I remember when it happened. And they're like, that record will never be broken. You know who broke the record?
Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice. Do you know by how much? I think he's got like 197 touchdowns. Some of those are running, but he almost doubled a record that some people said would never be broken. Now, people have broken it since the 100, but they haven't come close to Jerry Rice's almost 200. Say, well, I'm being partial. No. They said he was too slow. But guess where he learned how to catch a football, Brother Mikey? Do you know? Catching bricks from his dad. That's where he learned. His dad laid bricks, and he would throw them, and Jerry Rice would catch them as a boy. That's how he learned. And then people would go to work out and say, work out with him. They said they can't keep up with him. He took 1 week off a year. 1 week. And he worked 51 weeks. What he did the rest of the time is he trained and prepared and got himself ready. He put the effort in. So what I'm telling you, you can have talent, but if you don't put in the work, it doesn't matter. So like I said, somebody could say, well, I could do better than that. Just let me take it over. Well, if you're not here, what good does that do us?
Amen.
And I'm talking to all those that aren't here right now. Because you're here. You didn't like that, huh?
Come on.
Amen.
You think I'm picking on you? What good is your ability if you don't have the availability?
Come on.
You have to be available to use that ability. Yes, we would like to have all of the package, the whole thing. But guess what? It doesn't work that way. I'm going to tell you something. There's some things that you're going to have to work at harder. And just because someone else doesn't have to work as hard as you do, don't call it unfair. Just say, I have to work harder at it. But thank God that you can work hard.
Yes.
It may come easier to someone else, but thank God that you can do what you can with what you have.
Thank you, Jesus.
That's how I look at it. Some people may have been given a better hand dealt to them, but what am I going to do with the hand that was dealt to me?
Thank you,
What am
Lord.
I going to do with it? Can I get the most out of what I have? Not my limitations, but let me make up for my limitations with something else. That's why I say I can't forfeit prayer.
Come on.
Because I can't afford it.
Amen.
I said this one long time ago when I came to the Lord. I said, I know what it is to have curses. Why do I want to continue walking in curses? At a very young age, I already said, I've had enough of curses. Why do I want to keep feeding curses? And guess where a big part of that is going to happen? Is in the mind.
Choices.
How you think. What you think. If we put a clock on the conversations you have with people for a week, and if we put a clock on your thoughts for the week, your thoughts are going to morph the amount of dialogue you have with other people. You're constantly speaking in your mind.
Right.
Does anyone ever talk to themselves out loud?
All the time.
Somebody?
Mm-hmm.
It does help you. Do you know what they say, Brother Mario? No.
Geniuses.
He
Just
said-
don't answer yourself.
He said he's crazy. I'm going to tell you what they say.
Sometimes
When
you
you
need
talk to
genius
yourself,
advice.
Listen. That's what they say. I'll do this. Because sometimes I'll put something somewhere. I'll forget I put it there. So guess what? You say it out loud. I'm putting this right here. You say it out loud. Or you're trying to memorize something. You say it out loud. That's why if you're trying to learn a song, team, you sing it out loud because it helps you to remember it.
Yeah.
I'll give you another trick. I'm glad for computers and printers and all that. It makes life a lot easier. But guess what happens when you do this? When you write it down,
Yeah.
it helps you in your memory.
Mm-hmm.
I would take notes in a class and never look at the notes. But taking those notes would help to reinforce my memory. I'm helping you out, people. I'm giving you some help. You know, you're trying to figure something out. Like, they're always changing things on these phones and the tablets and computers, right? Aren't they always doing that?
Updates, yeah.
So, trying to figure, I don't know, grab one of these apps. And you open the app, and right when you think you have it figured out, they go and change it on you, right? Update the app, and it's like, can't you just leave it at least for a year? Right? So you got to change it up or whatever, okay. But you know what, sometimes you're trying to get it. You know what I'll do? Grab a piece of paper.
Write it down.
Nowadays it's a pen. And I'll write, do what it says. Do this, do this, do this. And never look at it again. But what happens is it etches it into my mind. Same thing with the computer. I'll grab a piece of paper. I'm trying to figure like how to navigate through something, and I'll just write it down. Doom, 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 doom. The tricky one, I don't know if any of you have this problem, is passwords.
Yep.
Right? Because I do this thing where I like to challenge my mind. Because I'm like, okay, remember these passwords. But then they throw these things where you have to have
Syllables.
character, a number, a capitalization. Then they really got me messed up. Right? Because some of them don't require that, but some do.
Yeah.
So guess what? You really can't use the same password all the way across. Right? And then my favorite is when they make you change the password every so often. It's like, are you just messing with me? And then it's like, wrong password, wrong password, wrong password. Send the thing, reset my password. And then you reset it and say, you can't use the same password. That was the one I should have put in that would open it up. And you wait, we'll send you an email, we'll send you a text, and all this time the clock's going. Right? Am I the only one? Just me and
Nope.
you, Brother Dan?
Nope.
The rest of
Come
them
on.
just like, they just go, they all get all figured out. Well, I know I didn't catch that. What's that? I know some of you caught that. He said password is password. But Medea, my daughter, is just like, she boom, 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 boom. She just uses her thumb to here. And I'm like, do you have like this special relationship with the people that run all this, the algorithms and all this? I don't know, because he's just like, I couldn't get it. All you have to do is do this. Anyways, challenging the mind. And you're going through these things. And you have to be able to identify with your thought patterns. Because emotions get in the way, it'll mess you up. And when somebody says something, if there's no logic behind it, and it's all emotions, it's not going to hold up. Well, that's the way I feel. That doesn't mean it's fact.
Come on.
I feel this way. This is what I feel. Well, that's why we have to watch it. Because your feelings can lie to you.
Yes. Yes.
I'm going to give you A little secret. I didn't feel like getting out of bed today.
Come on.
Did anyway.
I didn't feel like it. It was one of those 5 more minutes. I'm the only one. See, the rest of you didn't. You just guys, you went to bed in your church clothes. Just zoomed out, but not me. I was like the Tin Man. Gotta put some oil in
WD-40.
joints, get it going. I had to walk to the kitchen to get my energy drink going. Put it in the blender, mix it up, put it in there. It's like, okay, get in there. Jump in the shower. Crank that in. But if I listen to my feelings, you guys would be looking at dead space up here. I won't be standing there.
Come on.
Yeah.
You see that? I said this way back, Minister J. Mac, in the old school. I said, sometimes I don't feel like praying. Like ushers escort him out. But even back then, people will tell you, I never don't feel like praying. I'm like, that's not true. There's times you don't feel like praying.
That's right.
That's true.
But that's okay.
Amen.
That's why you faith it.
Exactly.
That's
Do it.
right.
You don't feel it.
That's right.
And prayers aren't about feeling anyways.
Amen.
And I've told you this. What does this mean?
Fight through it.
I feel God. What does that mean? Can you quantify that to me? You can't quantify I feel God. You don't like that, do you? And I'm not saying you can't feel something. All I'm saying is you can't quantify that. You can't build on that. You have to have faith. And you have to have word. And you have to have knowledge.
Amen.
Because how do you think Joseph felt at his feelings when his brothers sold him
Come on.
as a slave? And then he got falsely accused and cast into prison. How do you think he felt? And we talked about this last week. We know that Jesus had some feelings. Because where was it coming from when he said, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? Was that logic? No, it was feelings.
Mm-hmm.
He felt forsaken.
Yep.
Amen.
And don't tell me you haven't felt it.
Come on.
It doesn't mean it's true. It just means you felt it.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ones I say is really dangerous. It is dangerous. And you have to watch out for this one. Is feeling sorry for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling sorry for yourself is like quicksand. It'll just suck you down.
Yes.
It'll take you into an abyss. And you won't like this, but God will not reward you for feeling sorry for yourself.
Come on.
Amen.
And you say, why not? You know why not? Because if he gives you a cookie, you're going to keep doing it.
That's right.
Amen.
If he rewards you for feeling sorry for yourself, you're going to keep feeling sorry for yourself. That's why you have to shake that off. And watch that out. Watch out for that. Watch out for feeling sorry for yourself. What I'm saying is that's thinking out of emotions. That's not logic.
Right.
It's not fair. Nobody's been through what I've been through. You don't know what I've been through. Maybe I don't. But I'll tell you this, feeling sorry for yourself is not your answer.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the areas I lose friends. Power through it. Power through it. Fight through it. There's a time to mourn, but there's a time to get back on your feet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with mourning. What I mean to mourn. I'm not sure that I'm totally accepting this new thing they do at funerals now. Anyone know?
Mm-mm.
It's no longer called funerals.
Oh gosh.
It's called a celebration. Right? 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 You heard that? It's a celebration.
Actually, I have.
And now it used to be like just a certain group of people did that, a celebration of life. Now I see it, all kinds of different people do it now. Are you getting mad at me?
Nope.
Say, why is that wrong? Now listen to me. I don't have a problem with celebration of life. But prior to the celebration of life, there needs to be some mourning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
See, some people avoid the mourning part. And what happens is it gets suppressed.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to mourn.
Yes.
And guess what? If you mourn, the celebration isn't even that much better.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to mourn. But nowadays it's like that, the mourning part, what they used to call that the night before. All of you should remember this. Maybe the young ones don't, but awake. Right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
awake.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty much done away with now. But it was a time, a somber time to mourn.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's not a negative. But at the same time, you don't stay there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get up.
Amen.
So can you mourn and have a celebration?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can.
Mm-hmm.
You can mourn and have a celebration.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is, these are things that are based on feelings. And the feeling that gets avoided is mourning. To mourn. How about this? Well, I like to mourn in private.
That's fine.
That's okay. That's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound wrong?
Mm-mm.
No.
But you still mourn.
Right.
I don't think we all mourn the same.
Mm-mm.
And that's okay. That's okay. I didn't say it's wrong to have a celebration of life. I didn't say that. I'm just, what I say is wrong is not to mourn is wrong.
Right.
Because you know what can happen? You don't mourn. And then that thing you didn't mourn pops up 5 years later or
Right.
10 years later in the wrong place.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, they're like, he or she's losing it.
Mm-mm.
They lost it. They're bipolar. They lost their mind.
Mhm.
No, they're mourning something they lost in their life and they just didn't mourn it the other time and now they're mourning it.
Mhm.
But nobody's understanding it. You start crying at work and they're like, I think she's losing it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure some of you have lost someone and all of a sudden you just find yourself at tears at times
Yep.
or missing that person.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's because something's wrong with you?
Mm-mm.
No. No. Is that wrong?
Nope.
No, it's not wrong. And I'm telling you, the reason I'm sharing this so you can identify it.
Yeah.
Logic. It's logic. And you know what I say there? Spend some time there.
Yes.
I should have had you guys cue up a song that you might put on because this is what I say. You go through that moment. Pull up one of them songs.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday I seen this thing posted. Put a song up that you would never play in a funeral. You know, and people had a list and I was like, what a crazy question to ask. I say the opposite. Put a song you would play in a funeral.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm walking you down this path for a reason. I'm helping you here. So what you do when you experience that moment, pull up a song that goes with that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Cue up a song that goes with that moment. And do what with it? Spend some time there.
Yep.
Visit that place.
Yep.
Visit it. What I mean, visit. It's just a visitation.
Right.
But you get back up and don't counter it.
Yes.
Don't you go through that moment, don't go put on celebration cool in the game. No. And maybe you don't need to cue music up, but it just helps you to stay in. You're going through that moment, just shut your phone off.
Amen.
Shut everyone out
If you can. Yeah.
and have that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if I'm at work? I'm sure you can find somewhere to sneak away. Because it's better that you do that than you chuck your pen holder across the cubicle and hit someone in the head and lose your job. I'm telling you, I'm helping you here. I'm going through a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever looked at someone and thought about what they might be going through? I'm going to get you, Sister Angie. You think about your mom. Would I be stretching you think about her every day? You ever see someone you think about her? You ever hear a song that reminds you of your mom? A TV show ever come on and it reminds you of your mom? A commercial? Can you remember a TV show you and your mom used to watch together? And what's that do? It brings back memories, right?
Yeah.
Does that mean something's wrong with you? No. You just visit that spot. Visit. Just be grateful for the time you did have. But it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong that you visit that spot. And the reason I'm telling you this is that you can separate emotions from logic.
Mm-hmm.
And say, why am I edgy today? Why do I feel just like bothered? And that your logic tells you, I'm missing my mom. That doesn't make you weak. Doesn't make you lesser. And you identify, but your logic says, okay, let me visit this moment. But I'm going to have to get back up because I got to finish the task ahead of me.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I say. What would they tell you to do? Keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Keep fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Keep fighting. Keep powering through it.
That's right.
Keep grinding it out.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want you to be able to identify what's logic, what's emotions. And watch out for people that all they do is think emotionally, because they will take you down a path that will lead you to a dead end.
That's right, amen.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in that reasoning, there has to be some logic. We have to bring some logic to the table.
Mm-hmm.
What does logic tell us? 2 + 2 is 4. It has to make sense in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
Time to make the donuts. I can spend some time on that, but we don't have time. But I'll leave you with this, especially you younger generation. Don't go down working somewhere that you're not wired to work. Find something that fits you.
Yes.
And just because someone else does it, it doesn't mean that you can do it, because you may not be wired that way. You need to know how you're wired.
Amen.
You need to know what fits you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if not, your emotions will get thrown up in these things.
Yes.
tell you, I can spend some time there, but we got to get out. Be able to identify that which is emotional, that which is logical. You can't be all logic, I get it, but you can't be all emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be able to separate. We're going to have the children come up right now, but I remember in school we would learn different things, and one of the things that I really enjoyed and I always did was reading. Reading was always one of my favorite parts of school. And I remember in third grade that we were kind of left on our own. We had these books, and they had different characters and stuff in them. But you were on your own, and they had different values. And I'd get one, I'd go through it, and then you'd have to do like a quiz, and then go to the next one. And that appealed to me. And then in math, back then, they did the flashcards. And you'd have competitions. And I remember I was like, I'd get these, they throw the different equations, boom, boom, and you do these things. But then I started learning about the solar system and all these different things, and they're teaching you this, and they bring out the models and stuff. And I'd be like, are we almost done? I'm ready to get out of here. A lot of it just wouldn't appeal to me. And I wouldn't understand why I needed to learn certain things. And if I didn't understand why, I wouldn't apply myself. If I didn't understand the reason, I wouldn't apply myself. But as I got older, I began to realize there's a reason why you have to learn certain things. Like I shared not too long ago when I was talking to an attorney, and I was like, why do, if you're going to be an attorney, you need to know calculus? And he says, it's not that you're going to do calculus, you just have to prove that you can do it. Because it's evidence that you can do the research and you can put in the effort. And guess what happened? My brain went, okay, makes sense. I get it. You're never going to use the calculus, but going through the exercise of learning it shows that you can do the other stuff that it's going to take, the research, to argue a case. So, these children, they're not going to know why they're going to learn certain things, but as they grow, they will. But as adults, you should learn why you should learn.
Amen.
You ready, Minister Such? You ready for school, all of you?
Yes.
Yes. Clarissa's ready and excited.
Yes.
You're excited, Anthony? Yeah, I'm not buying it. That's okay. I wasn't excited either.